Alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala wa man tabi'ahum bi ihsan ila yawmiddin. Today is December 14th, 2025, and inshallah we are going to explore the area that's been the most controversial in the human being mind, including Muslims and non-Muslims, which is the artificial intelligence. First, we have the definition of the artificial intelligence as the title suggests. So there are two components in today's presentation. The first one is the artificial intelligence and what it is. And then we'll talk about the Halal and Haram aspect of it, whether it's permissible in Islam or it is not permissible in Islam. First of all, I would like to mention that the artificial intelligence has some horrible and the scary picture in most of the mankind mind. The reason for that is the science fiction movies, like the Terminator and the Matrix and the Transformers and the fighting robots in many movies. Most of the human beings who are not aware of the artificial intelligence built a very negative connotation about the artificial intelligence, thinking that it is a new technology that will grow to the point that it will take over the entire world and it will replace the human being. And as it's shown in the Matrix movie, that the robots or the artificial intelligence actually put all human beings in a bubble to control them and give them the illusion that they are indeed working with their own free will, but in reality they are being driven by the precise predetermined path made by the artificial intelligence. So due to this horrific movies, many people build a very negative connotation and resentment and rejection and denial of the artificial intelligence. At the same time, there are some other movies or episodes that came into the picture, which is one of them is the person of interest, which shows that a genius computer engineer wrote a program and made it self-driven or self-learning. He calls it the machine and the person of interest. And the machine basically was designed originally to identify major crimes and terrorist acts that may happen to prevent it. However, it does also produce a number of elements that may lead to some ordinary people that may be victim or perpetrators. So this person here, the actor and his partner, used to chase them to try to prevent the major crime from happening. So the artificial intelligence is really a natural progression of the science or the mathematics. First of all, we do remember that in the old machines, computer machines, this is just a picture of very old calculation machine. Before that, there was the beads. If you remember, there was like a slide and there are beads. So when people wanted to add 3 plus 5, then they would move 3 beads to the right, and then they move another 5 to the right, and then they count the beads on the right. They happen to be 8, so that would be the sum in a very simple form of mathematical devices. Later on, there was a progress of the sliding ruler. My brother Fatim probably remember this very well. I do remember his first year of College of Engineering, Cairo University. My father brought him one of these as a gift. And it was really like a super advanced technology thing. We were all bragging about it. And I used to hide after he comes home, and then I take it and then start playing with it, trying to figure out how can I multiply 2 to 3 numbers together and get the solution without spending minutes in calculation. Then later on, the calculator came into the existence, which was very simple mathematical tool to provide multiplication, subtractions, divisions, and addition. Then later on, the computer came to existence about 1981. The first home computer, which was made by IBM, came into the existence, and it was very primitive. It did not have windows or anything. It was basically a black screen, and then people would type, and the typing will appear as green characters on the screen. Very primitive computing tools. We are saying primitive now, but at that time it was really top-notch technology. There were also the mainframe. It came almost at the same time. I do remember 1981, Cairo University announced that they are building the top technology computer center. And I visited that center. It was really humongous building, and we had to take our shoes off when we walked into that building. And I do remember that the guide to the tour said that this is the most advanced computer system in the Middle East. I asked him what is the capacity of storage. He said it's magnificent 200 kilobyte. Now the smartphones, your smartphone, my smartphone, has the storage in gigabytes, and some of them are in terabytes. Later on, the supercomputer came into existence, which really showed maybe 300 million times the normal computing power, and it keeps growing in its computational power. And recently, the artificial intelligence came into the picture and really dominated the surface or the top of the technology in progress. So this is the artificial intelligence, which is the topic of today's session. So the next natural question after this progression in science is, what is artificial intelligence? What is it? What is that thing? What is that giant that everybody talks about? And it's a black box for every one of us. A simple definition, there are so many definitions. I picked up the simplest one published by IBM. It says the artificial intelligence basically to enable the machines to simulate human abilities. That includes to learn, reasoning, problem solving, creativity. That was the first generation of the artificial intelligence. Later on in about 2020, there is a new generation of artificial intelligence came into existence, which is known as the generative AI, that creates text, images, videos, audio, and codes. So the generative AI is the type of the artificial intelligence that you give it a command. For instance, you can say, draw a picture of a farmer in a farming land with his two sons who are middle-aged helping him. Then the artificial intelligence will take this prompt and then convert that to an image. And then later on you can say, please add animation or movement to this picture and make the farmer, for instance, hand a bucket of hay to his older son, something like that. And then the artificial intelligence will follow the command and create the video. When it comes to the audio, also you can type a text and you can give it to the artificial intelligence and it will convert it to an audio piece. I use that, and many people use that as well nowadays. The last one is the code. You can actually describe a certain program and then you can give it in a prompt to an artificial intelligence and then ask it to convert it to a code, program code such as Python, Fortran, which is an old one, and etc. So the artificial intelligence will actually convert that to a program code. Here are some examples of how the artificial intelligence work. So this is a really very simple example, and I think after this you will get the gist of the artificial intelligence, what it is. So assume that a human being is sitting on his computer, like this young man. And he is trying to train the artificial intelligence and give it some information to enable the artificial intelligence to predict and to learn from that man. So first, this artificial intelligence here in the bottom, the man in the top will feed a square to the artificial intelligence. And then he will feed a triangle to the artificial intelligence. And then he will feed a circle to the artificial intelligence. And then he will ask the artificial intelligence, what is the next shape? What do you expect the next shape will be? At that point, the artificial intelligence will say, I don't know. There is no specific pattern. It can be a vertical line. It can be a hexagon. It can be a pentagon. It can be anything. I don't know. So the artificial intelligence will not be able to answer. Then the man in the top will feed another piece of the puzzle. He says, okay, the next one is a square. Can you predict the next shape? Then the artificial intelligence at this point learned something. Learned that the sequence is square, triangle, circle, square. Then it will feed the answer to that man. It will say the next one is going to be a triangle. Then the man will ask another question. What do you expect the next shape will be? Now there is a set pattern. The artificial intelligence already learned the pattern. Square, triangle, circle, square, triangle. So the artificial intelligence automatically will say the next shape will be a circle, and so on. So this is how we train or feed the information to the artificial intelligence in a very simple example to illustrate the concept of the artificial intelligence. Let's take this to a more complex example to illustrate the capabilities of the artificial intelligence. For instance, if we feed this picture with multiple birds to the artificial intelligence and we tell the artificial intelligence that these are all birds, So now what we're doing is we are training the artificial intelligence. We are telling it every one of these pictures is a bird. So the artificial intelligence actually does not understand the pictures. It just tries to find a pattern that is common among every one of these pictures. So the artificial intelligence will come with the following. It will say, for instance, a bird has claws. So any picture that you feed me in the future, it has a claws, I will give it 20% probability to be a bird. If the picture has wings, then I will add 30% of the probability that this picture is indeed a bird. If the picture has feather, then I will add another 30% probability that this picture is a bird. And if the picture has a beak, then I will add another 20% that this picture is a bird. So if we feed the picture of this crow to the AI and we ask the AI, is this indeed a bird? The artificial intelligence will do the math. It will find the claws, the feather, the wings, the feather, the beak, and says, yes, 100%, this is a bird. Yes, for sure. I know that. And then later on, we feed the artificial intelligence a little bit of a difficult problem. We will feed the picture of a penguin to the artificial intelligence. So the AI will find that this picture has claws and beak, but it does not have feather or wings. The penguin does not actually have wings. It has these flaps. They look like wings, but they are not wings. And the feather is so thin and smooth, and it will not figure out that this is not a feather. It looks like a skin, and therefore it will say this is 40% a bird, and therefore the final answer is it is not a bird. It is not a bird. This penguin is not a bird. Then we come back and retrain. Think about this term, retrain AI, and tell it, no, this is the bird. So the AI will adjust the ratio, and it will give the claws 40%, reduce the wings to 10%, feather to 10%, increase to the beak is 40%. So when we present the picture next time to the AI, is this penguin a bird? It will say, yes, it has claws, it has a beak, so 40 plus 40, that's 80%. Yes, this picture most likely is a bird. So this is how we train the artificial intelligence, to make it understand more. So the next question is, where is the training? Who trains this AI? Who feeds the information to AI? As a matter of fact, all of us do. The 6 billion people worldwide do feed information to AI to train it to act and behave like human being. What are the sources? Here are some examples. Facebook. Every time you send a message in Facebook, AI capture that and feed it into the elements of training of AI. Instagram. Every time we send a message through Instagram, that also contribute to the feeding of information to AI. The surprising platform is WhatsApp. Every time you send a WhatsApp message, it is captured and fed into AI. It does help in training AI. When you find a message in the WhatsApp that says guaranteed end-to-end encryption, that means nothing. It means that nobody will have access to your message between the sender and the recipient except one, which is WhatsApp itself. And as you can see that if you ask yourself the question, how does Facebook get the money? What is the income of Facebook? Everybody knows it's through advertisement. That's why it's a multi-million-dollar company. But does WhatsApp really publish any ads? Answer is no. So how does WhatsApp that does not publish any ads was sold at $5 billion? $5 billion. It was sold to Meta, which owns Facebook as well. And there's no income whatsoever from the ads. The answer is because it has huge wealth of more than 1.5 billion people worldwide that keeps feeding information. And this is super valuable to the AI and also to the something called the big data that the advertisement of the social media heavily depend on. So every single time you send a message on WhatsApp, it gets classified based on your age, your gender, your locality, your citizenship, your education, etc. So the purpose of these billions and billions of messages that are sent over the social media every day is really to group the people of what they like the most. So for instance, the men from 60 to 70 years old who lives in North America, they like XYZ. That is really the purpose of this social media that provide the service to you at zero cost or very minimal cost. Another source of the information is LinkedIn, another platform of professional social media. Not only that, but also the email. Every time you send a Gmail or Yahoo or Bing or Hotmail, whatever, that also is captured and fed to AI to train the AI models or modules. In addition to that, there is also a huge source of information that is being fed to AI, which is website scraping. What does it mean? That means that yes, there are tools that can really access any website in the world or most of the websites in the world and then extract the data from these websites and then feed it to AI. Feed it to AI. That includes the government websites, includes the commercial websites, that includes the non-profit organizations websites. So all this information are open and all of this information are used on a daily basis to feed and train them to the AI. So now let's talk about the difference between the AI and the computers. So what is the difference between AI and computers? We know that AI is like a revolution now and everybody keeps talking about it and nobody talks about the computer. The difference is really minimal and I did explain it, but I will illustrate it in a very simple term. If you have a computer, in a computer, you feed information into it. There is an input, some information that you enter into the computer expecting some results or output. So if you feed the A information to a computer, the computer will produce an output called X. If you repeat the same process, you feed A, computer will produce X. A, X, A, X. No changes whatsoever. It's a computer program, it is set. No changes whatsoever. It's a fixed. But artificial intelligence is slightly different. If you feed information to the AI, the output at this time will be X. If you feed the same information one more time, you may get X again. But if you feed the same information later, you may get a different answer. You may get different output. Why? Why? Because AI has learned that Y is a better answer than X, and that's why it changes the output. If you feed A later on, you may get a whole new answer to that. All right, so the AI output is variable. It's not fixed. It's not static like the computers. Let me illustrate that with an example. On the screen here, this is a ChatGPT. Do you see my screen, the white screen?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to say to the artificial intelligence, Assalamu alaikum. Now the artificial intelligence is
Alaikum salam.
right. It says wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Kif halak Magdy. So now I'm going to say speak. Second. Let me change the language. I'm asking the artificial intelligence to speak back to me in English. I wrote it in Arabic. Let's see. And as you can see, sure, I will speak English from now on. How can I help you? All right, so the answer now is coming in English. Now I'm telling one second. I have to switch. Do you see my screen? The white screen?
Yes.
Okay, great. So I'm going to tell AI now, I'm trying to train AI. So I'm going to tell it the following. I'm saying that next time when I say peace be upon you, your response should be wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Good morning, Magdy. Okay, so I'm training AI now to change the answer. Let's see what the AI will do. Got it? I will remember that, and peace be upon you. So if I say to the AI the same exact greeting that I did a minute ago, Assalamu alaikum, let's see what the answer would be. It says, wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, not peace be upon you as they did the first time. So the reason I'm showing you this example is to let you know that the AI can be trained. All right, so, and that's really the beauty of the AI, more than the computer itself. Let's go back to the presentation. Alrighty, when was the AI born? There is really not very definitive timeline for this, but most people consider John McCarthy to be the father of AI. He spoke in the Baltimore Convention, 1956. I'm sorry, Dartmouth College, in a workshop. And he is the first one who stated that term, artificial intelligence. And he gave it that definition. He said how to make the machines use language, form abstractions and concepts, solve kinds of problems, now reserve it for human, and improve themselves. That improve themselves is really the main factor for the artificial intelligence, which is basically capable of being trained. As we said earlier, that the answer may differ from time to time based on the information and the training happened to the artificial intelligence. So that really concludes the concept of the artificial intelligence. I would like to pause here for a second if you have any questions before we go to the second part, which is the Sharia compliance or the Halal and Haram aspect of the artificial intelligence. Any questions before I move on? Alrighty, since there is no question, we are going to continue.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
Yeah, you have a question. The AI, based on what you said, based on what I know, it's just like it responds to something. So you trigger it, and then you expect to get an answer. On the other hand, and if you want to call it intelligence, it should come up with something by itself, like the human being. If you are sitting like that, you say, well, let me go to the store to have a dinner. Let me do this kind of an invention. Let me change the light because the light outside is not that bright. So cannot make a decision in its own. It just responded to a request. And that's not an intelligence. That's just like a big, as you mentioned, a big database. It search and find the answer. So I'm just not feeling comfortable about the word intelligence. The human being is intelligence because from inside it, there are ideas come out, whether right or wrong, that's not the issue. While the AI is not like that.
Well, I can give you an example really to illustrate the intelligence of the AI. For instance, in my business, I asked AI that I have a marketing company. Can you write a detailed plan of how to market my company to the healthcare institutions in the United States of America?
That's enough. You don't have to complete. You said I ask it. So
correct.
Yeah. So that's what I'm saying exactly. So you trigger it by giving the first card by asking a question or requesting. So it gives you a very good answer. That's okay. That's not the issue. The issue, if you leave it sitting idle and they know what you are doing in your business, they will never come up and open the microphone or write a message. Magdy, you need to do such and such. It
does too, because like for instance, there is many AI agents that you train them to answer the specific emails. You can see every time you receive an email that has the word, for instance, healthcare marketing, please direct this email to John Schmo in my company, for instance. So that's an intelligence, right? So
no, that's not intelligence the way I understand it. I'm sorry, it shouldn't take that long, the discussions. But my point, I'm repeating it again. It seems like my question did not come across.
No, it did.
If you leave it, if you leave it sitting by itself, it will never do anything unless you trigger it by a question or a request or a command. Maybe you have a command that every morning make my coffee and so forth. But if you leave it in it by itself, it will never come and tell you, Magdy, you need to do a good plan for your marketing. I think we don't have to take much more time than that.
No, you're right. This is the current generation of AI, which is the existing generation of AI. The next generation is called the general AI, which actually can take initiatives and then put the input to human beings. So for instance, you can wake up in the morning and then you find AI suggesting something to you before you actually trigger it or before you ask it. That's the next generation of AI. The third generation is called the super AI, which will actually take initiative to communicate with a human being and to also correct itself and reprogram itself. But that has not existed yet, does not exist yet.
Thank you. That answered my question. Jazakallah khair.
Yeah. So the next question is the Sharia part of this presentation. And before I continue, I would like to ask you this question. Are knives halal or haram? That's a weird question, right?
It depends on how you use it.
Exactly. So for instance, this criminal person who is trying to break into the room or to scratch it, that's absolutely haram to do that. However, if we use the knife to cut the cheese like this picture here, then it is halal. So knives in themselves are not halal or haram. What is halal and haram is the usage of the knives, of how the human being is using them, right? The same thing is the money. Is the money halal or haram? That green bill, the $100 bill, is it halal or haram? The right answer, as you said, is not halal or haram, neither halal nor haram. It is how we earn this $100 and how we spend it. That really determines whether it's halal or haram. So we cannot really say that the money or currency is halal or haram one way or another. It depends on the usage of it. The same thing for the smartphones. Are they halal or haram? Well, the smartphones can actually be used to organize your time, facilitate communications, etc. There's many useful usage of smartphone, and that make them halal in their usage. However, they can also be used to watch bad movies or bad pictures, etc., especially for the teenagers, and therefore the usage of the smartphone becomes haram. That applies to almost everything around us, and that really falls also under the same category of the AI. So AI in itself can be halal based on the usage and can be haram based on the usage. And we will see examples coming up in a few minutes, inshallah. Now the next question is, what constitutes halal or haram? What are the parameters? is this really subject to individuals or Muslims' opinion that, oh, I think this halal, oh, I think this haram? Is that the case, or there are really very structured way for the scholars to tell us if this mas'ala, if this issue is halal or haram? Of course, there are very restrictive, very structured ways to measure every problem or every issue against, to know whether it's halal or haram. In the Islamic Sharia, they call it the Islamic references. The Islamic references, or the references of the Islamic Sharia. There are many of them, maybe 17 or 20 or 25 of them, but all the scholars agreed that 4 of them are all on top of all the Islamic Sharia references. The first one is the Holy Qur'an. The second one is the Hadith. The third one is known as Ejmaa, which is a consensus among the scholars for a specific problem that all the scholars agreed that this issue is halal or this issue is haram, all the scholars at any point of time. The fourth one is called the Qeyas, which is analogy. And I will give several examples to illustrate each one of them in the next few slides. So all the scholars across the age of mankind since Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam until now, they agreed that these are the 4 references of the Islamic Sharia. Any question? Okay, the next one is the other Islamic Sharia references that the scholars really differed in their usage and their priorities as well. The first one is called the opinion of the companion. So the Prophet ﷺ lived among the companions, and everybody, all the scholars agreed that the companions of the Prophet are the most knowledgeable and the most noble and the most honorable generation. So there were a few companions around the Prophet that they are known as scholars of fiqh, scholars of jurisprudence. Not all the companions, some of them. So the opinion of these Islamic scholars from the companions of the Prophet is a reference in itself, is a reference. And it is actually highly regarded by Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal. He regarded the opinion of the companions to be in the top, right below the Qeyas, and comes like number 5. However, when it comes to another scholar, Imam Abi Hanifa, he considered the opinion of the opinion of the companions. If they all agree on certain opinion, then he would take this for granted and will not argue or discuss it any further. But if he finds that the scholars among the companions differs in one issue, then he would say, I may give higher weight to one opinion over the other one. So there are differences among the companions, the scholars of Islam. The sixth one is called Al-Istihsan. The next one is called Al-Masalih Al-Mursala. There are small definitions here next to each one of them. There's also Shara Man Qablakum, which is a former cultures or habit or practice of former nations before the Muslims, what the Jews used to do, what the Christians used to do, etc. This is also considered one of the references of the Islamic Sharia, as long as it does not contradict the Quran or the Sunnah or the Ijmaa or the Qeyas. There's also Istishab. And the last one is the common practice and the culture of the people of Medina. That last one is considered only by one scholar, which is Imam Malik ibn Anas, the Imam from Medina. He considered the common practice among the people of Medina as a reference in the Islamic Sharia. So this is just for your knowledge here. I'm going to give you some examples of the first 4 for the sake of time. For instance, the Quran. How do we know that the wine is haram? How do we know that? Well, the Quran clearly stated that in verse 590 in Surah Al-Ma'idah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala clearly stated, يا أيها الذين آمنوا إنما الخمر والميسر والأنصاب والأزلام رجس من عمل الشيطان فاجتنبوه لعلكم تفلحون. He clearly stated that wine is haram, and therefore the reference for the prohibition is from the Quran. So the conclusion is that the wine is haram. If we take another example, which is the nabit or liquor, we find that there is no reference in the Quran. However, there is a hadith of the Prophet, peace be upon him, when he said, كل شراب أسكر فهو حرام. So the Prophet, peace be upon him, said every drink that intoxicates is prohibited. And we know that the liquor is fermented juice of grains, but it does cause the intoxication. It makes people drunk. So the conclusion is that they are haram. So these are the two references. If we go to the Ejmaa, which is the consensus among the Islamic scholars, there's really very few issues that all the scholars agreed on, despite the fact that they are not mentioned in the Quran or the Hadith. And theoretically speaking, yes, it's really impossible that all the scholars will agree on certain opinion for a certain issue, despite the fact it is not clearly mentioned in the Quran or the Hadith. But indeed, there are some issues that all the scholars, Islamic scholars, agreed on. Let me give you some example. The first one is the fat of the pig or the lard. All the scholars agreed it is haram. There is no mention of the lard in the Quran or the Hadith. In Arabic, it's called shahm al-khanzir. The Quran is very clear. It says lahm al-khanzir, the meat of the pig. But all the scholars agreed that the lard is also haram. Another thing is selling human organs. It's also haram by all the scholars. They all agreed on that. Another issue that from the Ijmaa is playing the role of the Prophet, peace be upon him, in a movie or a TV episode or anything like that. It is haram by all the scholars. And then next one is the grandfather inheritance. If the father does not exist, that also is not in the Quran or the Hadith. So let me give you an example, illustration of this. If somebody dies and his father is deceased or died before that person, the scholars agreed that the grandfather will inherit in his grandson. It's not in the Quran, it's not in the Hadith, but it is agreed upon. The next one is treating grandparents with kindness as we treat our parents. There's no mention in the Quran of how should we treat our grandparents. Every ayah in the Quran and the Hadith refers to the parents. But all the scholars agreed that we should be as kind or maybe more kind to our grandparents among themselves, the scholars. So these are masail or mas'ala or issues that the scholars, all of them agreed on. There is no difference in opinion whatsoever. The fourth reference in the Islamic Sharia is called al-Qeyas, which is analogy. So what is al-Qeyas? What does it mean? It means that there are one mas'ala, one issue that is made halal or haram in the Quran, and there is another issue similar to it. They both agree on the reason. In Arabic they call it al-illa, mushtarikin fil illa. But the second one does not have rule whether it's haram or halal. Because of the analogy of the reasoning, the scholars agreed that the second one is also haram or halal, following the same hukm of the first one. A good example of that is the beating or striking the parents, beating them. Is this halal or haram? There is no mention in the Quran or Hadith about this particular issue. However, the Quran states very clearly, وَلَا تَقُلْ لَهُمَا أُفٍّ. Do not even say the word off or like a word of complaint, very tiny complaint to your parents. So the scholars said that what is the reason? What is the illah? What is the reasoning behind this? They said because resenting or complaining to the parents may hurt them emotionally and psychologically. So that is the illah, that is the reason. So beating the parents, physically abusing them, that causes more harm to them. And therefore it's automatically haram. So that's the concept of qiyas. Another example of that is, I did explain that here. Yes, so this is explanation of what I spoke about. So these are just a quick explanation of the references of the first four references of the Islamic Sharia, because it's not the main context of our discussion today, but I just wanted to illustrate how the scholars really identify what is halal and what is haram. So the big question to you is AI haram or halal? The conclusion is, it depends on the use of the AI. It depends on the use of the AI. If the AI is used in haram way, or something that may lead, not necessarily haram, but may lead to haram, then it's automatically haram. If the AI causes benefit, maslaha, or it will lead to something that will cause benefit to the Muslims or the human being in general, then it is halal. So this is the conclusion of today's speech, and here are some examples to illustrate what I meant by that. So there are 20 uses of the AI that are completely halal. Medical diagnosis, for instance, medical scheduling and operations, healthcare marketing and analytics. If you make AI really summarize a big book. So let's say you are interested in a certain topic, and there's a big book that's 600 pages. Is it halal or haram to ask AI to summarize that book and give it to you in like 4 or 5 pages? The answer is absolutely halal. If there's a big video that you wanted to learn from YouTube, certain topics, is it halal or haram to ask AI to summarize it for you? The answer is absolutely halal. You can do that to increase your knowledge and save your time. If there is certain processes that you wanted to do that takes a lot of time from you or your staff, or your company, colleagues, family members, etc., there is some robotic processes that AI can offer to save you the time, and absolutely halal to do that. So there is so many ways that AI can be halal. Business automation is one of them, fraud detections, etc. All of these are halal uses of AI. I listed here 20 of them. There are more than that, of course. But again, the measurement of the use of the AI is if they are compliance with the Islamic Sharia and with no violation, then there is no harm of using AI whatsoever. On the other hand, there are many ways to use AI in the haram way. The deepfake is really the biggest one. Deepfake is a subset of AI that basically replaces people's identity and impersonation. So recently, I'm sure you have seen videos of celebrities or political leaders giving some statements that they have not said in real life, or they are dancing or doing this or that. These are all called deepfake. It's really a subset of the AI by replacing the pictures of the videos of certain individuals and have them say something or state something that they have never said. Of course, this is a lie, cheating, and it's not acceptable. Anything related to sexual arousal or things like that is also haram from the Islamic Sharia point of view. So these are some examples here. And inshallah, I will send this to you. So 22 is what I was able to list here. However, there's so many of them, and everything has to be measured against the Islamic Sharia references to identify whether the use of AI is really halal or haram. So that really takes us to the final conclusion of today's lesson. And that question is to you. For us as Muslims, where do we go from here? Do we reject and deny AI altogether? Or shall we learn, engage, utilize AI with the Sharia constraints and compliance? I stop at this point and then I will ask you for your input, inshallah.